This is the size of the Empire State Building. And this is TimeWave Zero, a 2,300-foot climbing route in northern Mexico. On March 23rd, my friend Jaden and I climbed TimeWave Zero in 14 hours. And I actually made this big adventure movie about the whole experience called The Mexico Story, that if you haven't watched, go and watch it either right now or right after watching this video. But in that video, I did not really get into like the technical details of how we pulled this thing off. So in this video, I'll have none of that storytelling garbage that I know none of us want, and I'll be loaded with nothing but details, information, and satisfying techie stuff. All right, let's get into it. I just want to preface this by saying that in no way was this like the biggest climbing accomplishment in the world. I mean, not even close. But for us though, it was this major accomplishment, and I think if you climb or are even remotely interested in climbing, it could one day be this major accomplishment for you too. And that's why I'm making this video. I think you guys could really benefit from watching a detailed instructional video that helps you either prepare for bigger climbing objectives of your own, or just giving you a better sense of how climbing something like this actually even works.
Yeah, we can just kind of like put that next.
First, I'll tell you exactly what climbing gear we brought with us. I won't tell you the exact brands for time's sake, but I generally trust the gear from these companies. I would say that a 70-meter rope is pretty essential for most multi-pitch climbs. Many climbs you can get away with a 60-meter, but I just recommend bringing a 70-meter so you just don't have to worry about it. And for this climb specifically, it was essential for doing something called linking pitches, which I'll get into in a little bit. 22 quick draws, 2 belay devices called ATCs, 2 belay devices called gree-grees, 6 locking carabiners, 2 240-centimeter slings, 4 60-centimeter slings, 2 hollow blocks for friction hitches, 2 helmets, 2 harnesses, and of course, climbing shears. For this, I rocked my TC Pros that are definitely pricey, but generally regarded as some of the best and comfiest climbing shoes for multi-pitch climbing. And now to make sure you know exactly what is going on, I'm going to use these 2 little guys to demonstrate how sport multi-pitch climbing works. Mini Noah and Mini Jaden. If you don't climb or are just getting into climbing, then this will be a great way for you to visualize in your head how this system works. First of all, what is a pitch? A pitch is a section of climbing, usually about a rope length. Multi-pitch climbing means that you are climbing a bigger cliff, and you need to break up that climb into individual pitch sections in order to get to the top. You start on the ground, obviously. Mini Jaden is tied into one end of the rope, and Mini Noah is tied into the other. Jaden sets off climbing up the wall, clipping quick draws into pre-placed bolts. Mini Noah, the belayer, is constantly feeding slack through the rope system, using a friction device like an ATC or a gree-gree, and the rope is always loose, unless the climber falls, in which case they would fall twice the distance to the last anchor before the system would tense. When Mini Jaden makes it to the top of the pitch, which is usually marked by an anchor station with 2 or more bolts placed right next to each other, he clips himself in independently so that Mini Noah can take off the friction device, taking him off belay. Now with the rope all loose, Mini Jaden is free to pull up all the rope in the system until he starts tugging on Mini Noah at the bottom. Mini Jaden puts Mini Noah on belay and pulls in the slack as he starts climbing. When Noah reaches the anchor station, he clips himself in and they can hang out for a second to prepare for the next pitch. Generally, it is now Noah's turn to lead climb, for efficiency purposes because the rope is already coiled in a way that it will uncoil perfectly as Noah climbs up. So now the system just really repeats itself, moving up in this sort of ping-pongy fashion, taking turns leading and following, until Noah and Jaden reach the top of the route. Woohoo! The main wall. Looking big. Thanks for the belay, Jaden. So now that you have an idea of how multi-pitch climbing even works, let's take a look at how TimeWave Zero breaks down and how we climbed it. Officially, TimeWave Zero is 23 pitches, but of those 23 pitches, only 6 are greater than 510 in difficulty, and I would say that only 3 are truly difficult, where I had to really try hard. Pitch 2, graded 511, is difficult with a short overhanging section, small, slippery holds, and most likely you'll be doing it at night. I climbed it at 4 o'clock in the morning, where the only light was from my headlamp to look for the hand and footholds. Pitch 20, graded 510D, has no individual section that's really difficult, but it is slightly overhanging and sustained climbing the whole way. Just really tiring. Pitch 21, the hardest pitch on the entire route, graded 512A, had a 15-foot section that was really blank and incredibly difficult. At that point in the day, with my fatigue and exhaustion, I have no idea how I would have climbed it. It wasn't even fathomable for me. This was the only pitch where I actually had to cheat a little bit and pull on bolts to get through the difficult section, which means that I can't say I cleanly climbed the entirety of TimeWave Zero. Oh well. Most of the pitches on TimeWave Zero can be linked to save time, where the lead climber will climb 2 pitches instead of just 1 pitch in one go. This pretty much stretches out the entirety of the rope, meaning that the lead climber can't be lowered down once they set off into the second pitch. So for this reason, I only recommend linking pitches that you confidently feel you can climb. And also for this reason, I recommend a 70-meter rope, just to give you that extra wiggle room. Linking pitches will also lead to a lot of rope drag, since when you're climbing the second pitch, you're pretty much hauling up the entire rope when you go to clip. So try not to climb any difficult grades as the second pitch in your link. In terms of quantity and spacing of bolts, with the exception of pitch 22, which was a little bit run out, and pitch 17, which had 1 missing bolt hanger, the spacing and frequency of bolts felt really well thought through and secure. I give huge props to the route setters for this. TimeWave Zero took us 14 hours to climb up, starting at 3:30 in the morning and getting to the top at 4:30 in the afternoon. Factoring in for the hour or so that we spent resting, we can estimate that we spent on average 33 minutes climbing each pitch of the route.
Top of TimeWave Zero!
Some multi-pitches you walk off the top, but for TimeWave Zero we rappelled down for a total of 21 individual rappels. Especially with the faded excitement of having already reached the top and the eagerness to get down before dark, rappelling is something that is easy to rush. But statistically, rappelling is where the vast majority of climbing accidents happen, so do your best to not rush this part. With the system for climbing up, there is a lot less room and variables for stuff to go wrong, actually. With rappelling, it's more likely that you'll knock a rock on yourself, that the rope will get stuck, or something seriously worse if you, for whatever reason, rappel too far and haven't tied stopper knots. Always tie stopper knots.
Alright, bro. See ya.
So going into this climb, one of the things that I was most worried about was just the physical endurance. Would we have the energy to do 2,300 feet of climbing in a single day? And in the end, that turned out to be not as much of an issue as I thought it would be, but really what wore us down throughout the day was the mental fatigue. Just constantly worrying about not dropping gree-grees, making sure the rope is going through the right way, and just generally being scared of heights. A lot of climbers tend to be pretty bro-y about this stuff and just not really talk about it. But the fear of heights was, for me, a big factor, even as someone who considers themselves to be pretty comfortable being high up. Just having this baseline of fear throughout the day that you never get a break from really wears away at your spirits. Yeah.
It's been adding up the whole day.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, I just want to forget about it all. But you have to stay on because you're on the wall.
Yeah. It's a lot of being on all the time. I recommend bringing a decent amount of water. We brought 6 liters of water in total and ended up having a full liter at the end. So officially I would recommend 5 liters for a team of 2. We brought a lot of granola bars and trail mix for snacks, and I can't forget the prized snack which we shared at the top, a jar of sugary, no-stir peanut butter. I really do think that peanut butter is the best pound-for-pound snack for adventures like these because it is just so dense and has all 3 of the macronutrients, proteins, carbs, and fats.
Walkie-talkies were one of the most essential pieces of gear that we brought with us. Especially when we linked pitches and were more than 200 feet away from each other, it would have been really hard to communicate without them.
In terms of how we carried all this stuff, for the first 12 pitches we brought up 2 backpacks, one with about 70% of the weight and one with about 30% of the weight. Whoever was the lead climber wore the lighter backpack and whoever was the follower wore the heavier backpack. At the top of pitch 12, where there was a comfy ledge, we left a backpack with a liter of water and some snacks that we planned on picking up on the way down. Oh, and be sure to bring a plastic bag like this tortilla bag. I'm not going to tell you exactly why, but if you watched the Mexico story, then you'll know. And here are a few concluding thoughts. If you don't climb or are just getting into climbing, you might think that a route like TimeWave Zero is just way out of reach, something that you might do way down the line. And I want to emphasize that that might not actually be the case. I've only been climbing for 3 years, which I know seems crazy because it's the basis of my entire personality now. I want to emphasize that if you put in the time to practice multi-pitch systems, this could be well within your wheelhouse. It's very rare that you'll find a route that is this tall and bolted bottom to top. This makes it really accessible from a safety perspective, those of us looking to get a taste of the big wall experience while keeping the risk pretty manageable, but also from a cost perspective. Traditional climbing gear that you frequently need for multi-pitch climbing costs upwards of $1,000 or more, while the 22 quick draws that we needed for TimeWave Zero cost $300 to $400 at most. I have so much gratitude for the route setters, for anyone in the world for that matter who has bolted or set up a route. It is because of their countless volunteer hours that we all get to enjoy routes that are as magnificent as TimeWave Zero. If you want more specific information, go to Mountain Project or purchase the El Potrero Chico guidebook. I hope this video helped you to prepare for your multi-pitch climbing objectives, or at least just gave you a better sense of how climbing works. And I'll see you in the next video.